Ethan pulled into a quiet, dimly lit gas station just past midnight, exhaustion etched deep into his face after a long day working double shifts. His 10-year-old son, Caleb, was curled up asleep in the back seat, wrapped tightly in an old jacket. The gas tank was nearly empty, and Ethan reached into his pocket, pulling out a few worn bills, barely enough for a few gallons. Every cent mattered these days, and he had learned to stretch what little they had. As he started pumping, the sound of soft, muffled crying caught his attention. Looking across the lot, he noticed a young woman sitting on the curb near the convenience store. Her head was down, arms wrapped tightly around her knees, shoulders trembling. Something about her posture, so fragile, so broken, stirred something in him. Ethan glanced back at Caleb, then at the woman. He didn't have much, but he knew what it felt like to be lost and alone. Without thinking, he walked over slowly. "You all right, miss?" he asked gently. She looked up, startled but too drained to respond with anything more than a nod and a shaky breath. Even without her words, he could see the pain in her eyes, pain he recognized. She was stranded, heartbroken, and likely had nowhere to go. Ethan didn't ask questions. He simply offered her a granola bar from his glove box, a bottle of water, and the last $20 he had in his wallet, the same money he'd planned to buy groceries with. The woman hesitated as Ethan handed her the granola bar and water. Her hands trembled as she took them, her eyes still puffy from crying. She looked up at him, confused and cautious. "Why would you help me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan shrugged lightly, his face soft with understanding. "Because I've been where you are. And sometimes, a little kindness is all someone needs to keep going." She introduced herself as Lena. She had left a toxic relationship that night, fleeing with nothing but the clothes on her back and her purse. She didn't know where to go or what to do next. Ethan listened without judgment. He didn't press for details or offer advice. He simply stayed beside her for a few quiet minutes, letting her know she wasn't invisible. Before leaving, he handed her the last $20 in his wallet. She tried to refuse, but he insisted, telling her to at least find a warm meal or a safe place for the night. She looked at him, her voice cracking with emotion. "You don't even know me." Ethan gave her a small, tired smile. "That doesn't matter. What matters is you needed help." As he walked back to his car, Lena watched him drive off, his taillights fading into the night. She stood there stunned, clutching the small act of compassion like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Something about that stranger, his selflessness, his calm, stayed with her. The next morning, Lena couldn't shake the memory of the man at the gas station, the stranger who gave when he had so little. Something about him lingered in her mind, the quiet strength, the tired eyes, the way he never once made her feel like a burden. She had to know more. Out of curiosity, and something deeper she couldn't quite name, she returned to the gas station, hoping to find a clue about where he had gone. To her surprise, she spotted his old pickup truck a few blocks away, parked outside a small school. She watched from a distance as he helped his son, Caleb, climb out of the truck, gently adjusting his backpack and giving him a quick hug before sending him off with a wave. There was no mother in sight, just the two of them. Lena followed discreetly as Ethan drove to a nearby construction site. He stepped out wearing a dusty vest and a hard hat, lunchbox in hand. It was clear he worked long hours doing physical labor. Later that day, she saw him again at a discount grocery store, carefully scanning items and counting coupons. He smiled warmly at the cashier, never once seeming bitter or beaten down by life. Watching all this from afar, Lena's chest tightened. The man who had helped her so freely was carrying the weight of the world and doing it with grace. He had no idea someone was watching, but Lena had seen enough. And she had made up her mind. That evening, just as the sun began to set, Ethan was finishing up dinner when there was a soft knock at his apartment door. He opened it cautiously, surprised to see Lena standing there, holding a thick envelope in her hand. She looked different, calmer, more confident, but her eyes still held that same emotion from the night before. "I need to tell you the truth," she began, her voice steady. "I wasn't entirely honest last night." Ethan's brows furrowed as he listened. "I wasn't stranded. I wasn't broke. I just needed to know if there were still good people in the world. And you were more than I ever expected." Ethan stood silently as she handed him the envelope. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "Open it," she said softly. Inside, he found documents, property papers, a house deed, fully paid. His hands shook as he flipped through the pages, unable to believe what he was seeing. "I bought you a home," Lena said, tears forming again. "You gave me something priceless when I needed it most, kindness, without condition. Let me give you something back." Ethan was speechless. Emotions flooded him, confusion, disbelief, gratitude. "But, why?" he finally managed to whisper. Lena smiled, eyes filled with warmth. "Because people like you deserve more than just survival. You gave me hope. This is my way of returning it." For the first time in years, Ethan felt something he hadn't known he was missing: seen, valued, and safe. The evening sun bathed the front porch of the small new house in a golden glow. Ethan sat on the steps with Caleb beside him, his arm draped around his son's shoulders. They shared slices of pizza on paper plates, laughing about something Caleb had said. For the first time in a long time, the laughter wasn't forced. It was real, full, and free. Lena sat across from them, smiling as she watched the bond between father and son. She didn't say much, she didn't need to. Her gesture had already said everything. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with gratitude and something deeper: connection. Ethan looked around at the home, the peeling paint, the little yard, the crooked fence, and saw beauty in every inch of it. Not because it was perfect, but because it was theirs. A fresh start. A place where his son could sleep without hearing the neighbors argue through paper-thin walls. A place where he didn't have to worry if the rent would rise next month. He turned to Lena, his voice low and sincere. "I still don't understand why you chose to do this for me." Lena looked at him, her expression soft. "Because in a world full of people who turn away, you didn't. You gave without expecting anything. That changed everything for me." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the three of them sat quietly, united by a moment of humanity. A stranger's tears, a simple act of kindness, and a life forever changed.